Go ahead and open up your Bibles to Hebrews chapter 11. Hebrews chapter 11. Last week, we continued our study on encouragement. We began with Romans chapter 8. We had a couple lessons there in Romans, and then looked at Hebrews chapter 10. But we see that as we continue through the book of Hebrews with Hebrews chapter 11 and then Hebrews chapter 12, we find that there's a lot of similarities between these three chapters and Romans chapter 8. And last week we saw that we have confidence because of Christ, and so therefore we draw near with confidence in Hebrews chapter 10. We have hope, so we hold fast our confession, Hebrews chapter 10. Nothing separates us from God's love. Do not throw away your confidence, the end of Hebrews chapter 10. And then we are more than conquerors. Well, in Hebrews chapter 11 and 12, we run with endurance. Christ intercedes for us. Jesus is the author and finisher of our faith. We said we've got three lessons here. Do not throw away your confidence. And then the faith that endures. Lord willing, next week we will see run to win. Don't throw away your confidence. We saw we need to draw near, we need to hold fast, we consider one another, and we do not throw it away. That's how we have confidence in our Christian lives. But now coming into Hebrews chapter 11, the faith that endures. This is Hebrews chapter 11 is kind of the heart of these three chapters. Right in the middle, but it's making a point. First off, we see that in Romans chapter 8, God hasn't quit on us. No matter where we are in life, no matter our circumstances, no matter what, God is always there. And in fact, He's doing what? He's making sure that everything that happens to us, good and bad, works together for good to them that love Him. In Hebrews chapter 10, we saw, don't quit. Don't throw away your confidence. Hold fast to that, for therein is great reward, right? We're not of those that shrink back and are destroyed, but we're those that have faith and preserve their souls. And then in Hebrews chapter 11, we kind of see the Hebrew writer saying, look at all these people here that didn't quit. Look at all these individuals that no matter what they went through, no matter what they faced, look at this, they didn't quit. You can do this. And in Hebrews chapter 12, we see now you don't quit either. You can do this because He did it first. Looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before Him endured the cross, despised the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Finish well will be the final thought of our study on encouragement. Finish well. Don't lose confidence. Hold fast to the faith. Run with patient endurance and finish to the end. This is one sustained message all the way down through here. We see in Romans chapter 8, but then as we skipped over to Hebrews chapter 10, 11, and 12, it's one sustained message. If God be for us, then who can be against us? Nothing shall be able to separate us from the love of Jesus Christ our Lord. God does not leave us. And so we as Christians should not leave Him either. We as Christians should not give up either. And this is not merely just comfort that we're talking about. This is not merely just encouragement. It's not merely just faith. But rather, what we want to learn out of these three lessons, Hebrews 10, Hebrews chapter 11, and Hebrews chapter 12, is encouragement through endurance. Encouragement through endurance. Why do we even need comfort? Why do we even need encouragement? Well, it's because things are happening all around us. If evil was not here, if evil never existed, if Adam and Eve had never fallen, would we have need for endurance? Would we have need? No, None of this existed. We're not striving against anything, right? But we do strive. We do face trials. We do face sorrows. We do face temptations. All these things are around us, and so we have need for patient endurance. Biblical encouragement is not simply everything is going to be all right. Well, we understand that, and we believe that, right? But that's not simply what biblical encouragement is. Biblical encouragement is understanding that God will be with us no matter what comes. It's not just, hey, everything's going to be all right. Everything's going to be all right because God is with us. Hebrews chapter 10, as we saw last week, tells us what needs to happen. What needs to happen in our lives is that we draw near to God. We hold fast to Him. We consider one another to stir up love and good works. We do not throw away our confidence, and then we do not quit. Hebrews chapter 11 tells us you can do this. You can do those things. You can draw near to God. You can hold fast. You can consider one another. You don't have to throw away your confidence, and you do not have to quit. You can do this. Look at all these people who trusted God. Look at all these people who endured. Look at all these people who refused to shrink back and were not destroyed. Hebrews chapter 12 then tells us you can do this because He did it first. Because Christ, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. The ultimate command is not, look at Abraham, look at Noah, look at Enoch, look at Samson, look at David, look at all these different people here in chapter 11. That's not the command, the ultimate command that we find there at the beginning of Hebrews chapter 12. The ultimate command is, because we've got this great cloud of witnesses, let's lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily besets us. Let's push everything to the side, and let's run with patience the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. He is the object of our, Jesus is our comfort in Romans chapter 8. He's our confidence in Hebrews chapter 10. He's the object of our faith in Hebrews chapter 11. And then He's the one waiting at the finish line in Hebrews chapter 12. Hebrews chapter 10, verse 39 down through 11 and verse 3. Let's read that real quick and kind of put this into some context. We are not of those who draw back to perdition or to destruction, but those who believe to the saving of the soul. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. For by it the elders obtained a good testimony. By faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God, so that the things which are seen were not made of things which are visible. Hebrews chapter 11 here doesn't begin with a new subject for us as we turn the page in our Bibles. Hebrews 10 verse 39 says, we're not of those that shrink back and are destroyed, but of those who have faith and preserve their souls. So what is faith? What is faith? And that leads us to our first question here this morning. Not our first point. I'm sorry, we're still introducing the lesson here. We'll get to the body here in just a moment. What is faith? It's the assurance of things hoped for. It's the conviction of things not seen. So it's kind of natural. Like we said last week, some scholars believe that this is a sermon that was preached by the Apostle Paul and recorded down, maybe by Luke, maybe by someone else. But notice, well, we're not of those that shrink back and are destroyed. We're those who have faith. What is faith? Faith is the assurance of things hoped for. It's the evidence of things not seen. It's the substance of things hoped for. The evidence or the conviction of things not seen. We are people who have faith and preserve our souls. And so the obvious question is what does that kind of faith look like? What kind of faith does it take to preserve a soul? Hebrews chapter 11 does not merely define that faith like it does just there in Hebrews chapter 11 and verse 1. That's not all that the writer has to say about it. It doesn't just define it, it demonstrates it for us. What kind of faith does it take to preserve a soul? Well, let me show you what kind of faith it takes. Let me show you what faith looks like when it is truly lived. This lesson is not merely about having faith, but rather it's about living our faith. It's about what it looks like in day-to-day life with God. Before we get into our text, though, let's look at a couple things here. What Hebrews chapter 11 is not. What Hebrews chapter 11 is not. Hebrews chapter 11 is not just a hall of perfect people. In fact, these people were far from sinless. It's not a hall of perfect people. We sometimes put them up on a pedestal. These were sinners. These were people who made mistakes in their lives. Noah failed. Abraham stumbled. Sarah doubted. Jacob deceived. Jacob was a liar. Moses lost his temper. Rahab had a sinful past. Samson had serious weaknesses. King David had multiple sins. They're not sinless people. It's not perfect. The point is not look how perfect these people are. The point is look how faithful they were to God. They were ordinary people who trusted in an extraordinary God. You know, they didn't wake up knowing they would be remembered for thousands of years. They didn't make their decisions and say, this is going to impact people who do not even exist yet some 4,000 years in the future. They simply took the next faithful step. Noah did not know that he was becoming Noah. Abraham did not know that he was becoming Abraham. Moses did not know that generations of people would preach him weekly in their synagogues. They simply just trusted God today. And they did what God commanded them. Even though they were imperfect, they took the next step and they made their choice. Hebrews chapter 11 is not about immediate results. Some people in the chapter experienced visible victory, right? Others suffered terribly. It even talks about people being sawn in half. Some conquered kingdoms. Some stopped the mouths of lions. Some escaped the edge of the sword. Others are tortured, imprisoned, mocked, forced to wander in deserts and caves. The results of their faith are not consistent. And so that's not the point. The point is that they had faith. Both groups pleased God. So faith is not measured by immediate results. Faith is simply measured by continual faithfulness. It's not by the results, it's by the length of how long we are faithful to God. Hebrews chapter 11 is not about having great faith. Hebrews chapter 11 is not about having great faith, large faith. Hebrews chapter 11 is not encouraging us to become the next Abraham, to become the next Noah, to become the next Paul. The point of Hebrews chapter 11 is not about the greatness of their faith. The point is about the greatness of their God and their faithfulness to that one. Faith is only as powerful as the one to whom and which it is placed. If you're putting your faith in me, your faith is not very powerful. But if we put our faith in God, how strong can it be? Hebrews 11 does not say, have Abraham's faith. Hebrews chapter 11 says, trust Abraham's God. Not have some great, powerful faith. And then Hebrews chapter 11 is not really about them. Oh, sure, we call it sometimes the Hall of Faith, right? And we put these great individuals, great to us, up on these pedestals. But Hebrews chapter 11 is not about them. Hebrews chapter 11 is a mirror. Hebrews chapter 11 is about us. Well, we often say, look at them. But really, what we should be saying is, look at us. The first readers were not meant to think, I could never be Abraham. I could never be Moses. I could never be Noah. It's not what the writer's intent is. The writer's intent is that Abraham had to wait too. Moses suffered as well. Noah faced ridicule as he preached as well. It's not about I could never be that. It's I can do that because they did that. They suffered as well. They suffered the same things I am. I'm not the only one. And that's encouragement, because we see God behind the whole thing. So, as we break into the body of our lesson, what is Hebrews chapter 11? We asked the question to begin with, what is faith? Well, faith obeys. Hebrews 11, 4 through 7. By faith, Abel offered to God a more excellent sacrifice than Cain, through which he obtained witness that he was righteous, God testifying of his gifts, and through it he, being dead, still speaks. By faith Enoch was taken away so that he did not see death, and was not found because God had taken him. For because he was taken, he had this testimony that he pleased God. But without faith it is impossible to please him. For he who comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek after him. By faith Noah, being divinely warned of things yet not seen, moved with godly fear, prepared an ark for the saving of his household, by which he condemned the world, and became heir of the righteousness which is according to faith. Our first section here in the text, faith obeys. It's an obedient faith. Abel worshiped God correctly. Enoch walked with God and pleased him. Noah saw God's warning, obeyed God's warning, fulfilled the mission that God gave him, and became an heir of righteousness. We go back to Genesis chapter 6. And we find the verdict in the case of Noah. In Genesis chapter 6, it tells us, and thus Noah did according to all that God commanded him. Faith is obedient. Each one of these people trusted God enough to act. Abel brought what God desired. Enoch lived in a fellowship with God, such a close fellowship with God that he is one of the few who ascended into heaven without seeing death. And Noah built an ark because God warned him about something that was not even known at the time. Noah didn't have all the answers, but he did have trust in God. He did have faith in God. And so therefore he said, I'll obey it. I don't understand it, but I'll obey it. Faith does not always understand. Faith does not always see the outcome. Faith does not always know what is next around the corner. Faith simply asks of us, will I trust God today? Not 10 years from now, not 50 years from now, but will I trust God today to do as he has commanded of me? Enduring faith is not normally built in one spectacular moment. An enduring faith is built one prayer at a time, one act of obedience at a time, one choice at a time, one Bible study at a time, one ordinary day at a time. Faith just simply takes the next step. And then we see faith waits. Hebrews chapter 11, 8 through 22. By faith Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to the place which he would receive as an inheritance, and he went out not knowing where he was going. By faith he dwelt in the land of promises in a foreign country, dwelling in tents with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. For he waited for the city which has foundations, whose builder and maker is God. By faith Sarah herself also received strength to conceive seed, and she bore a child when she was past the age, because she judged him faithful who had promised. Therefore, from one man, and him as good as dead, were born as many as the stars of the sky in multitude, innumerable as the sand which is by the seashore. These all died in faith, not having received the promises, but having seen them afar off, were assured of them, embraced them, and confessed that they were strangers and pilgrims on the earth. For those who say such things declare plainly that they seek a homeland. And truly, if they had called to mind the country from which they had come out, they would have had opportunity to return. But now they desire a better, and that is a heavenly country. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared for them a city. By faith, Abraham, when he was tested, offered up Isaac, and he who had received the promises offered up his only begotten son, of whom it was said, in Isaac your seed shall be called, concluding that God was able to raise him up even from the dead, from which he also received him in a figurative sense. By faith, Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau concerning things to come. By faith, Jacob, when he was dying, blessed each of the sons of Joseph in worship, leaning on the top of his staff. By faith, Joseph, when he was dying, made mention of the departure of the children of Israel and gave instructions concerning his bones. 17 down through verse 22 there. Notice, each one of these things did not happen immediately. Abraham says, God told me that this son would be the father of many nations. So if he wants me to offer him up as a sacrifice, he must be raising him from the dead. That's got to be the answer to this. And so I'll sacrifice my son. And then Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau concerning things to come. And in Jacob, when he was dying, blessed each of the sons of Joseph. And in Joseph, made mention of the departure of the children of Israel. All the things that were to come. Abraham is the greatest example of waiting faith. Abraham leaves his home, going to a place that he did not know, living in tents, waiting for a son, waiting for God's promises, offering up the son, and then dying without seeing everything fulfilled. Sarah also has to trust God's timing. So Abraham spent far more time waiting for things to happen and for the promises to come than performing spectacular acts of faith. Most of his life is not found in Genesis chapter 22. Most of his life is ordinary waiting, moving from place to place. Abraham became Abraham because he spent decades trusting God one day at a time. Faith waits when prayers are not immediately answered. Faith waits when suffering does not immediately end. Faith waits when circumstances do not improve, when the future is unclear. God's timing is not our timing. God is worth waiting for. Waiting is not the absence of faith. Waiting, in fact, is really where our faith grows, where we learn and practice our trust in God. Then we see that faith chooses. Verse 23 down through verse 31. By faith Moses, when he was born, was hidden 3 months by his parents because they saw he was a beautiful child, and they were not afraid of the king's command. By faith Moses, when he became of age, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the passing pleasures of sin, esteeming the reproach of Christ greater riches than the treasures in Egypt, for he looked to the reward. By faith he forsook Egypt, not fearing the wrath of the king, for he endured as seeing him who is invisible. By faith he kept the Passover and the sprinkling of blood, lest he who destroyed the firstborn should touch them. By faith they passed through the Red Sea as by dry land, whereas the Egyptians, attempting to do so, were drowned. By faith, the walls of Jericho fell down after they were encircled for 7 days. By faith, Rahab, the harlot Rahab, did not perish with those who did not believe, but she had received the spies with peace. Moses teaches us that faith always makes choices. What choices are we having to make today? And what is the choice of faith? Moses chose God's people over the people of Egypt. Moses chose suffering over temporary pleasure. Moses chose reproach for Christ over the treasures of Egypt and eternity rather than immediate comfort. Rahab also made choices, right? She made a choice of faith over fear, God's people over her own city, God's promise over what she could see around her. In each of these cases here, sacrifices had to be made. Something that's really great here. I can give this up now, sacrifice this now, in order to have a far more exceeding weight of glory. We learned that out of Romans chapter 8, right? Every day we choose between comfort and commitment. We choose between convenience or conviction. We choose between ourselves and God. We choose between the temporary or the eternal. Every day we make choices. Faith does not choose God once. Faith chooses God again and again and again. Again, our faith is not built. Great, extraordinary faith that preserves souls is not built in just momentary, spectacular choices. Faith that preserves souls is built in the small day-to-day choices of our conviction for God over self. And then faith endures. Verse 32 down through 40. These verses here are probably perhaps the most powerful verses of the entire chapter. And what more shall I say? For time would fail me to tell of Gideon and Barak, of Samson and Jephthah, also of David and Samuel, and of the prophets, who through faith subdued kingdoms, worked righteousness, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the violence of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, out of weakness were made strong, became valiant in battle, turned to flight the armies of the aliens. Women received their dead raised to life again. Others were tortured, not accepting deliverance, that they may obtain a better resurrection. Still others had trials of mockings and scourgings, yes, and of chains and imprisonment. They were stoned, they were sawn in two, were tempted, were slain with the sword. They wandered about in sheepskins and goatskins, being destitute, afflicted, tormented, of whom the world was not worthy. They wandered in deserts and mountains and dens and caves of the earth. All these, having obtained a good testimony through faith, did not receive the promise. God, having provided something better for us, that they should not be made perfect apart from us. All these died, not having obtained the promise. Now, this section here destroys the idea that faithfulness always produces earthly success. We can't just say, oh, I've got faith in God, I want this, and so therefore I'm going to have it. It doesn't work that way. Some conquered kingdoms. Some were able to enforce justice. Some obtained promises. Some stopped the mouths of lions. Some quenched fire, escaped the sword, became strong in weakness, put to flight the armies of the aliens. But others were tortured, mocked, flogged, chained, imprisoned, stoned, killed, destitute, afflicted, mistreated, forced to wander in deserts, mountains, caves, and holes in the ground. But yet both groups received the exact same commendation. They died in faith. Why? Notice that last verse. What does he say? God, having provided something better for us, that they should not be made perfect apart from us. Look, they died in faith. not having received the promise, so that we can die in faith and both of us can receive the same promise. This chapter is not about them. This chapter is about us. They did it, I can do it. The writer does not measure success by outcomes. He measures success by faithfulness. Sometimes faith conquers kingdoms. Sometimes faith survives one more painful day. Sometimes faith stops lions. Sometimes faith walks through valleys. Sometimes faith escapes the sword. Sometimes faith dies by the sword. Both are victorious. Both please God. Perhaps today we are not conquering a kingdom. Perhaps today we're just trying to be faithful one day at a time. Perhaps today we're simply just trying to put one foot in front of the other. Perhaps we're grieving, we're tired, we're discouraged, we're struggling, we're lonely, we're afraid, we're tempted to quit. God has not asked every single one of us to conquer a kingdom. He has asked every Christian to remain faithful. The great encouragement of Hebrews chapter 11 is that they are us. They're just like us. They put one foot in front of the other. They struggled. They hurt. They cried. They laughed. They fell. They sinned. But they were faithful. They're us. Not because we will become the next Abraham or Moses or Rahab or Noah, but because we must do what they did. We must trust. We must obey. We must wait. We must choose. We must suffer. We must endure. We must remain faithful. These people are not spiritual superheroes. They were imperfect people who refused to quit trusting in God. The first century Christians hearing this letter were not supposed to say, I will never become Abraham. They were supposed to say, Abraham had to wait too. Moses suffered too. Moses fought his temper as well. Noah was ridiculed. Others struggled just like I struggled. I'm not the only one. The writer is not trying to produce admiration. He's trying to produce courage. His message is, you can do this. Not because we're strong enough. Not because we're good enough. Not because we're extraordinary. But because God is faithful. Others endured before us. Jesus has gone on before us. And we can do it. Our people do not need Abraham's faith tomorrow morning. What they need is faith enough to get up and pray tomorrow morning, to open their Bibles tomorrow morning, to obey God tomorrow, to love their spouses tomorrow, to encourage someone tomorrow, to resist temptation tomorrow, to remain faithful tomorrow, to be at worship the next Lord's Day, again and again and again. So long as there is a today, so long as there is a tomorrow, again and again. That's all that we need, is the faith to just take the next step. And that is how enduring faith, or soul-preserving faith, is made. Not in the spectacular choices, but in those moments. Thousands of ordinary moments spent trusting an extraordinary God. Abraham never had Abraham's faith. He simply just trusted in God. It wasn't Abraham's faith until after Abraham died. It was just faith. Trusting in God. Today, tomorrow, again and again and again, until 1,000 ordinary days becomes a testimony of enduring faith. A lifetime of faithfulness is built one day at a time. I know our time is right at the top, but let me finish this out, please. A glimpse at the finish line here. Verse 39 through chapter 12 and verse 1. All these, having obtained a good testimony through faith, did not receive the promise, God having provided something better for us, that they should not be made perfect apart from us. Therefore we also, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us. Hebrews chapter 12 begins, therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses. The word therefore is not accidental. The writer is connecting everything in chapter 11 to a race that we are running. They lived by faith. They endured. They finished. Now it's our turn. They've run the same track. They've run the same path. They've done the same things. And they are standing as a great cloud of witnesses. The imagery here is unmistakable. A race. We've got runners, we've got endurance, we've got weights that must be set aside, we've got sin that clings, we've got witnesses surrounding us. The faithful people of Hebrews chapter 11 ran their race, and now they surround us as a great cloud of witnesses. Their lives testify that the race can be finished. They made it. And now the writer turns to us and says, now you run. Now you do it. And imagine this. We've run and we're having to dig deep. We're reaching up the last corner of that race. We can't see the finish line, but we know it's right around the corner. And we're reaching there and we run around that corner. And there they all are in the grandstands, cheering, calling us on. And we dig deep because standing there at the finish line is Jesus Christ. Not up in the grandstand, but waiting to catch us at the end of our race, to wrap his arms around us and say, well done. You made it to the end. That is Hebrews chapter 11. That is a soul-preserving faith. Hebrews chapter 11 wants us to know Abel made it. Noah made it. Abraham made it. Moses made it. Rahab made it. Those who conquered kingdoms, those who wandered in caves, those who stopped lions, those who died without seeing a promise fulfilled made it. And therefore, it can be done. Look, not by perfect people, not by sinless people, not by extraordinary people, but by faithful people. We can do this. Endurance only makes sense, though, when we know where we're going. We're going home. We're going home. The entire series changes when we remember our destination. Romans 8 is not just about surviving or enduring this life. It's about glory. Hebrews chapter 10 is not merely about enduring this life. It's about receiving the promise. Hebrews chapter 11 is not merely about admiring faith, but it's about desiring and obtaining a better country. And Hebrews chapter 12 is not about running, but rather it's about finishing. Heaven has been our destination, and the point of this series from the very beginning. We're going home. Abraham's there, Moses is there, Paul is there, our faithful grandparents are there, a faithful husband, a faithful wife, they're there. Faithful Christians from generations before us are there. And brethren, by the grace of God, we will make it too. We will make it because he will be there. The one who died for us, the one who carried us, the one who sustained us, the one who never quit on us, the one who's been the point of every sermon ever, the one who ran before us, the one who endured, who finished, the one waiting at the line, the one waiting to catch us and say, well done, good and faithful servant. We can do this. We don't have to have extraordinary faith. It doesn't have to be some great thing that's going to lead us into the hall of faith some 100 years from now that people will talk about us and how great we were. All it takes to make it into heaven is the simple, ordinary, step after step faith. Years of service to God, one step after another, one choice after another, one victory after another. That's what takes us to heaven. That's all it takes to get there. What's stopping us? What do we need to set aside? What weight is holding us back? What do we need to set aside this morning? Can we help you with that? Brethren, we will make it. Let's consider one another in order to provoke unto love and good works. We're going home as we stand and as we sing.